Buzz. The spiritual energy between heaven and earth surged violently, and 5 black crescent moons condensed beneath Taiyin's palm. Black liquid flowed from the crescents, exuding an incredibly corrosive aura. The countless powerful beings in the vicinity couldn't help but become solemn at this moment. They all sensed a trace of killing intent in Taiyin's attack, clearly indicating that he no longer intended to drag out the fight with Mu Chun, but planned to end what he saw as a tedious battle with a lightning-fast strike. The kings of the 9 Nether and others also straightened up slightly. Although Taiyin had only recently broken through to the 5th grade supreme, the intensity of his attack was enough to make them take him seriously. Go! Taiyin's cold eyes locked onto Mu Chun, and with a flick of his sleeve, the 5 black crescent moons trembled and disappeared, tearing through space. The next moment, they reappeared directly above Mu Chun, darting around like agile fish. Taiyin sneered as he gazed at Mu Chun, standing atop his great sun indestructible body. His eyes filled with coldness. Since he was about to strike, he intended to shatter Mu Chun's courage completely. With that thought, he clenched his 5 fingers sharply. 5 moons convergence. The 5 crescent moons, each radiating endless coldness, collided with a resounding crash, merging into one. The already terrifying force became even more dreadful, tearing the void itself apart. Everyone's expression changed slightly, sensing Taiyin's killing intent. Mu Chun stood calmly atop his great sun indestructible body, his dark eyes watching the terrifying assault as it came at him. His hands quickly clasped together, and his seal changed in a flash. Buzz. As his seal shifted, brilliant golden light erupted from his forehead and chest, resembling 2 blazing golden suns. The golden light spread and surged into Mu Chun's body, causing his entire form to shine with dazzling brilliance. 9 Yang Divine Art, Dual Solar Power. A flash of golden light seemed to pass through Mu Chun's dark eyes. His seal shifted again, and a voice rang out from his heart. 9 Yang Divine Art, Celestial Sun Golden Seal. Whoosh! An ancient golden light seal formed beneath Mu Chun's palm, transforming into a streak of golden light that shot across the sky without hesitation, aiming directly at the black beam of light tearing through space. After unleashing the Celestial Sun Golden Seal, Mu Chun didn't stop there. He knew full well that facing a full-force attack from a 5th grade supreme, it was impossible to block it so easily. Roar! He stomped fiercely with his foot, and a dragon-like force surged within him. Suddenly, a thunderous dragon's roar and an elephant's trumpet echoed from Mu Chun's body, shaking the entire sky. Whoosh! Whoosh! For beams of light suddenly shot out from Mu Chun's body, quickly transforming into 4 massive dragons and elephants. The giant dragon coiled, and the giant elephant stomped the air, radiating a violent spiritual energy fluctuation. 9 dragons and 9 elephants art. 2 of them burned with purple flames, while the other 2 crackled with invisible lightning. The wildly different attributes of their spiritual energy surged with uncontrollable ferocity. Boom! The 2 dragons and 2 elephants crashed together, sending a violent wave of spiritual energy rolling out like a tidal wave. A massive dragon and elephant light will quickly took shape, shooting out as a streak of light. With the Celestial Sun Golden Seal in front and the dragon and elephant light will behind, Mu Chun unleashed both powerful attacks without hesitation. The momentum was such that even the countless powerful beings watching felt a chill run down their spines. Although Mu Chun had just broken through to the 4th grade supreme, these attacks would likely be hard to resist even for many seasoned 4th grade supremes. But would this be enough to withstand Taiyin's deadly strike? Amid the tensely watching eyes, the 2 streams of light finally collided in the sky, tearing apart space itself. The collision was like a meteor crashing through the heavens. Boom! In that instant, a terrifying spiritual energy storm surged outward. The shockwave of spiritual power raged like a massive tidal wave, causing the very fabric of space to shatter under the immense pressure. The black and golden lights each filled half of the sky, relentlessly eroding and clashing against each other. Taiyin's expression was indifferent as he watched the collision of these 2 incredible forces. His eyes grew even colder, and he coldly commanded, "Shatter!" The massive crescent moon, formed from 5 black crescent-shaped rings, suddenly quivered, and a chilling force surged wildly. With a swish, a spatial tear ripped through the air, and the golden light seal shattered with a loud crack. The enormous black crescent moon, after violently tearing through the golden light seal, didn't pause for a moment. It immediately rushed toward the incoming dragon and elephant light wheel, and the two forces narrowly missed each other. The dragon and elephant light wheel exploded, scattering into countless light spots, but at the same time, the massive black crescent moon grew dimmer, with cracks starting to appear on its surface. The remaining power is enough to finish you off, Taiyin sneered. Although a large portion of his spiritual energy had been depleted by Mu Chen's 2 attacks, the remaining force was more than enough. Above Mu Chen, in his great sun immortal body, his dark eyes fixed on the black crescent moon charging at him. He made an astonishing move. Without any intention of dodging, he stomped his foot and shot into the sky, his real body charging directly at the crescent moon. Whoosh! Around the Dragon Phoenix altar, the air was filled with exclamations of surprise. Seeking death, Taiyin's eyes flashed with cold fury. Buzz! Brilliant golden light erupted from Mu Chen's body, and suddenly, massive Dragon Phoenix shadows appeared around him. His golden armor materialized, shimmering with divine radiance. He swung his fist, sending waves of golden light surging. Amid the astonished gazes, his fist slammed into the black crescent moon, which was radiating chilling power. A violent spiritual energy shockwave rampaged outward. Mu Chen's figure was sent flying back by the force of the impact. But as his body was sent hurtling backward, everyone saw that cracks rapidly spread across the black crescent moon that had taken Mu Chen's punch. Finally, with a loud explosion, it shattered, scattering into a sky full of dark, black light spots. Taiyin's full-force strike had been dissolved by Mu Chen. Mu Chen was thrown backward, but his great sun immortal body's massive hand reached out and caught him. The terrifying recoil had even caused cracks to form on the hand of the great sun immortal body. Mu Chen landed on the hand, and the golden armor dissipated. Everyone could see that blood was trickling down his fingers from the palm. Mu Chen glanced at the blood on his hand. He could feel a numbing sensation there. Had he not been wearing the Dragon Phoenix golden armor and possessing the Dragon Phoenix body, the crescent moon would have torn him apart in an instant. A full-force strike from a 5th grade Supreme was indeed not to be underestimated. Even though much of its power had been drained, it was still enough to kill a 4th grade Supreme. However, it was clear that Taiyin had underestimated Mu Chen's strength. Low murmurs of shock filled the air, as many were amazed that Mu Chen had only suffered a minor injury, yet managed to withstand Taiyin's full-force attack. Taiyin's face was as cold as ice as he watched the scene. He stared at Mu Chen, whose expression remained calm and undisturbed, and the anger in his heart intensified. Mu Chen's repeated unexpected moves had caused him to lose face. Yet, in his rage, Taiyin also began to truly regard Mu Chen as a worthy opponent. He realized that if he continued underestimating him, he might very well suffer a devastating defeat today, which was something he could not afford. Taiyin took a deep breath of cold air, and the fury in his eyes began to subside, replaced by a cold, sinister aura. Mu Chen, seeing this change, frowned slightly. It was clear that Taiyin would now be much more difficult to deal with. Taiyin's cold eyes locked onto Mu Chen. Stamping his foot, a black weapon, resembling a crescent moon, materialized in the massive hand of his Taiyin avatar. The weapon's crescent blade emanated an intensely sharp and freezing aura. Boom! The Taiyin avatar surged forward, carrying overwhelming cold energy. He launched a relentless, frenzied assault on Mu Chen. At this moment, Taiyin combined his spiritual energy with his Taiyin avatar, and the attack from both powers together had the potential to tear the heavens apart. Mu Chen, seeing this, quickly changed his stance, summoning the great Xun'er demon pillar. The massive hand of his great sun immortal body shot out, rushing toward Taiyin's attack. Boom! The two colossal figures clashed high in the sky. In an instant, the winds and clouds churned, and a fierce gale howled. Everyone gazed solemnly at the fierce clash between the two supreme Dharmakayas. Jiu Yu! It seems like Mu Chen's situation is not looking good, Tang Bing said, unable to hold back, her eyes on the sky. The collision between the two colossal figures clearly showed that the Taiyin Dharmakaya had the upper hand. Jiu Yu nodded gravely, her delicate face etched with concern. After all, Chiu Taiyin was no pushover. After initially underestimating Mu Chen and repeatedly failing, he had adjusted his mindset. He no longer competed with Mu Chen in terms of techniques, but chose the battle strategy that gave him the most advantage, pooling his own strength with the Supreme Dharmakaya's power. Chiu Taiyin had the power of a 5th grade Supreme, and in terms of the might and endurance of his spiritual energy, he was far stronger than Mu Chen. Continuing the fight in this way, Mu Chen would inevitably lose in the end. It was clear that Jiu Yu wasn't the only one who saw through this. The other kings shook their heads inwardly. The rhythm of the battle had been entirely grasped by Chiu Taiyin. If it weren't for Mu Chen's extraordinary Supreme Dharmakaya, he would likely have lost by now. But even so, all it did was delay his defeat. On the golden throne, Mandala's slender brows furrowed. Could Mu Chen really stop Chiu Taiyin from sealing the king? Under the countless gazes of the world, Mu Chen, standing atop the great sun indestructible body, looked up at the fierce Taiyin Dharmakaya. Above it, Chiu Taiyin flashed a cold, grim smile. It was evident to all that Mu Chen was at a disadvantage. Mu Chen took a deep breath of cold air, and then his eyes slowly closed amidst the astonished gazes of many. His body gradually sank into the great sun indestructible body. You think it's that easy to defeat me like this? The violent, uncontrollable spiritual energy raged like a storm through the heavens and earth. The two silhouettes, like giants, collided fiercely in the sky, the sharp lunar blade and demonic pillar crashing together. The resulting spiritual energy shockwave caused the space itself to tremble violently. During the intense clash, Mu Chen's figure slipped into the great sun indestructible body, clearly using it as a shield to avoid Chiu Taiyin's current onslaught. You think hiding in your Supreme Dharmakaya like a turtle will save you? Chiu Taiyin sneered at Mu Chen's actions. The humiliation of being blocked by Mu Chen several times earlier had finally dissipated, replaced by a deep sense of satisfaction. It was clear to anyone watching that Chiu Taiyin had already gained absolute control of the battle. The victory was now firmly in his hands. With a cold smile, Chiu Taiyin's spiritual energy erupted like a volcano, and the chilling aura of his Taiyin Dharmakaya grew increasingly terrifying. His assault on the great sun indestructible body grew fiercer. Under Chiu Taiyin's relentless attack, the golden light surrounding the great sun indestructible body began to destabilize. Clearly, even the great sun indestructible body couldn't ignore such a powerful attack when faced with both Chiu Taiyin and his Taiyin Dharmakaya. All the powerful figures in the heavens and earth watched regretfully as the great sun indestructible body was forced to retreat step by step. However, no one mocked Mu Chen because everyone knew that with his recent breakthrough to 5th grade Supreme, forcing Chiu Taiyin into such a cautious position was an unexpected achievement. After all, even Qin Zhong, who had 1 foot in the 5th grade Supreme realm, had not been able to pressure Chiu Taiyin into such a careful stance. But amidst the sighs and regret, even the mighty kings furrowed their brows, their gazes filled with confusion as they watched the great sun indestructible body retreating. With their exceptional perception, they could sense that the immense spiritual energy surrounding the great sun indestructible body was gradually depleting. It felt as though Mu Chen's spiritual energy was no longer enough to sustain the Supreme Dharmakaya. To others, this might seem like the result of Chiu Taiyin's overwhelming attack. But they didn't think so. They had a more direct understanding of Mu Chen's strength. Despite his youth, his numerous tricks had been enough to make even much stronger opponents wary of him. So, they were puzzled. In this world, only the Mandala on the golden throne and the 3 sovereigns, including the heavenly vulture emperor, had their gazes flicker slightly, their eyes filled with surprise as they watched the great sun immortal body, whose golden light began to fade. Within the increasingly dimming great sun immortal body, they vaguely sensed some unusual fluctuations. However, these fluctuations were momentarily hard to pinpoint due to the overwhelming spiritual energy emanating from the great sun immortal body. What they could confirm, however, was that Chen had not, as everyone had expected, fallen back in defeat. He was clearly preparing something in secret. This discovery piqued the curiosity of Mandala and the three sovereigns. They were equally eager to see how Chen would turn the tables in the face of such a dire situation. Under the gaze of countless eyes across the heavens, the fluctuations of spiritual energy in the sky became increasingly violent. Taiyin, clearly concerned about dragging the battle on, intensified his assault. The sharp lunar blades sliced through the air like lightning, leaving cracks in the golden body. This battle is almost over. Taiyin stood atop his Taiyin avatar, his cold gaze fixed on the dimming great sun immortal body. A murderous intent flashed in his eyes before he suddenly formed hand seals. Spiritual energy surged within him like a tidal wave and flowed into his Taiyin avatar. Buzz! A dark, black light rippled around the Taiyin avatar, and then the avatar seemed to let out a low growl. The black spiritual energy quickly gathered on its massive fists, eventually forming into a gigantic black ice fist. Lunar fist, Taiyin shouted, and the black ice fist tore through the void in an instant. The air around it froze, turning into shards of black ice. The chilling force sent a shiver down the spine of anyone who felt it. Taiyin's punch unleashed the full force of a fifth-grade supreme, and combined with the power of the Taiyin avatar, it was enough to shatter the heavens. Countless strong individuals stiffened, sensing the ferocity of Taiyin's strike. Facing such a fierce assault, Chen's supreme avatar had no way to dodge. He could only watch as the black ice fist tore through the void, and with the speed of thunder, it slammed into the chest of the great sun immortal body. Boom! At the moment of impact, the space trembled, and terrifying spiritual shockwaves surged from the ice fist, ravaging everything. Everyone watched as black cracks spread rapidly across the massive body of the great sun immortal body, soon engulfing its entire form. It's over. Countless strong individuals sighed in regret. After withstanding such a powerful blow from Taiyin, it seemed impossible for even Chen's supreme avatar to remain intact. Without the supreme avatar, Chen stood no chance against Taiyin. The battle's outcome was already decided. Bang! The cracks on the great sun immortal body's massive form continued to multiply, and finally, golden light erupted from the cracks, followed by a tremendous explosion. The great sun immortal body could no longer withstand the pressure and shattered into pieces. Standing atop the Taiyin avatar, Taiyin watched the golden light fill his vision. A cold, victorious smirk curved on his lips. With the destruction of the supreme avatar, even if Chen had some divine means left, it was impossible for him to turn the tide. This battle had a clear winner. It would be him. The position of 10th king of the great Luo heaven domain still belonged to Taiyin. Ha! At this thought, even Taiyin, with his calm demeanor, couldn't help but chuckle. The laughter grew louder, echoing across the battlefield. His pride and triumph were evident in his voice, and anyone could feel his overwhelming confidence. However, no one dared to dispute Taiyin's smugness. After all, from now on, he would be the 10th king of the great Luo heaven domain. Only 4 others in the entire domain would be above him. He truly was the victor. The dazzling golden light filled the heavens, and Taiyin's laughter continued. But the kings, gazing at the sky full of golden light, suddenly froze. A deep astonishment appeared on their faces. On the golden throne, Mandala's golden eyes flashed with divine light, and the 3 sovereigns' expressions were also subtly shocked. At the same time, a calm voice rang out from within the brilliant golden light that enveloped the heavens. The voice was not loud, yet at that very moment, it brought a sudden silence to the square, which had been filled with murmurs of regret. Immediately after, an earth-shattering uproar erupted. Chen hadn't been defeated yet. Countless powerful figures were filled with disbelief, their eyes wide in shock. Taiyin's laughter abruptly stopped, his face turning ashen as he stared toward the golden light that filled the air. His voice was cold and menacing. "You dare to be so stubborn at a time like this? Do you think I won't kill you?" The murderous intent in Taiyin's eyes surged. With a flick of his sleeve, a violent whirlwind swept through, instantly dispersing the brilliant golden light that had filled the sky. When the golden light faded, the scene within became clear to everyone. What was once a scene of shock became silent as a myriad of mouths hung open in astonishment. That is, Taiyin's eyes shrank at the sight before him. There, floating in the air, was Chen, his face pale. Surrounding him were 4 massive black lotuses, silently suspended in place. The 4 black lotuses seemed to carry no fluctuation of spiritual energy, but the petals were etched with countless ancient, cryptic symbols. As the symbols flickered faintly, a disturbing wave of energy spread from them, sending a shiver down everyone's spine. "Is that a spirit array?" The Xun'er king and the others exclaimed in shock. Though the 4 black lotuses appeared calm, they could feel the unusual spiritual energy emanating from them. That was the unmistakable aura of a spirit array. Moreover, it was a spirit array of exceptionally high rank. Even they could feel the oppressive sensation beneath the 4 black lotuses, making their hearts race. Hiss! The air was filled with the sound of sharp intakes of breath as the experts around the square were left stunned. Clearly, Chen's move had caught them all off guard. No one had anticipated that, with such terrifying strength, Chen also possessed profound knowledge as a spirit array master. It was only now that everyone understood why Chen had earlier entered the Supreme Dharmakaya. It wasn't out of retreat, but rather to conceal his actions and silently set up the spirit array with the protection of the Supreme Dharmakaya. That spirit array formed by these 4 black lotuses is certainly extraordinary. Only an Earth-grade spirit array master could have arranged such a powerful formation, someone muttered, shaken. The spirit arrays set by an Earth-grade spirit array master could easily outclass even a 5th-grade supreme without a hint of hesitation. Impossible. Taiyin's face darkened with rage, his voice seething. He never expected this unforeseen twist after what he thought was an assured victory. "I refuse to believe you're actually an Earth-grade spirit array master. This superficial trick won't intimidate me." Taiyin barked, his face twisting with fury. Chen, with a pale face, gazed coldly at the twisted expression of Taiyin. He didn't speak a word. With a weary sigh, he extended his long fingers and gently pointed into the air. A soft, yet resonant voice echoed in his heart. "Activate the perfect demonic lotus slaughter spirit array." As those words flowed through his mind, the 4 black lotuses in the sky slowly began to bloom. Dark, inky radiance spread outward, emanating a chilling wave of energy without sound or warning. Everyone could feel the terrifying power contained within the 4 black lotuses. This was Chen's final trump card, the perfected form of the demonic lotus slaughter spirit array, for lotuses forming a formation. In the past, Chen had been unable to materialize all 4 black lotuses due to limitations in strength. However, with each breakthrough in his power, his understanding of spirit arrays deepened. Though he had rarely revealed his identity as a spirit array master since arriving in the Great Luo Heaven domain, he had never neglected his study of spirit arrays. As his strength grew, so did his mastery of spirit arrays. And this, he had hidden deeply, even from 9 Nether and Mandala. This perfectly formed demonic lotus slaughtering spirit array belongs to the Earth-grade spirit array. Among such arrays, some with immense power are so formidable that even a 5th-grade supreme would hesitate to face their sharpness. Moreover, advanced Earth-grade spirit arrays are strong enough to rival a 6th-grade supreme. Spirit array masters are divided into 3 ranks: heaven, earth, and human. Given Chen's profound understanding of spirit arrays, he should be considered a high-ranking human-grade spirit array master. However, the success rate of arranging a perfect form of the demonic lotus slaughtering spirit array at this level is extremely low. But with his breakthrough to the 4th-grade supreme and the subsequent enhancement of his spiritual power, his skills as a spirit array master also grew stronger. Thus, by utilizing his unique lesser heart demon state, Chen was finally able to successfully arrange the perfect form of the Earth-grade demonic lotus slaughtering spirit array. When the 4 black lotuses appeared, Chen could clearly sense the sudden quietness in the surrounding heavens and earth. Around the king's ceiling platform, countless strong figures were left dumbfounded. Even the kings were astonished, clearly taken aback. They weren't unaware of Chen's identity as a spirit array master. After all, Chen had arranged spirit arrays in their presence before. But at that time, his understanding of spirit arrays had clearly not been something to fear. However, now, the spirit array formed by the 4 black lotuses made even them feel a hint of danger. As a result, their expressions grew serious. Chen's 4th grade supreme strength might not have been enough to make them cautious, but when combined with his identity as an Earth grade spirit array master, even the kings no longer dared to underestimate him. It's impossible. At the moment when Taiyin's furious cry rang out, Chen's slender finger lightly pointed in midair, his youthful face calm as still water. Boom. The 4 black lotuses bloomed, their petals tilting as they aimed directly at the enormous Taiyin avatar. Then, dark, ink-like light began to condense at their centers. With a violent tremor, the black lotuses released 4 ink-black beams of light in complete silence. The surface of the black beams seemed to be filled with ancient patterns, mysterious and inscrutable. The dark black beams passed through the void without making much noise, but as they did, they tore through space, leaving 4 dark traces that remained for a long time. Taiyin shield. At that moment, Taiyin's hair stood on end. His face turned ashen, and with a swift hand gesture, he unleashed his spiritual power without reserve. On the surface of his Taiyin avatar's body, black runes flickered and soon formed into a massive black ice shield in front of him. Whoosh! The 4 black beams silently approached and struck the black ice shield with a powerful impact, under the watchful eyes of countless spectators. Hiss! At the moment of impact, there was no deafening sound, but everyone's pupils shrank as they witnessed the seemingly indestructible black ice shield being completely useless. It was as though the ice met magma, immediately melting and being pierced through. Taiyin looked at the 4 eerie black beams, which had pierced through the ice shield almost instantaneously, his face filled with horror. But before he could react, those chilling black beams had already pierced through space and were headed straight for the massive Taiyin avatar's body. The ink-black beams entered the Taiyin avatar's body, and at the point of entry, black patterns spread out at an astonishing speed, quickly covering the entire body of the Taiyin avatar. As those black patterns spread, Taiyin's face drastically changed. He could feel that the immense spiritual power within the Taiyin avatar was rapidly dissipating. No matter how much he tried to stop it, the dissipation couldn't be prevented. How could this happen? Taiyin roared inwardly, but his outburst was futile. Within just a few short moments, everyone saw the cold aura around the Taiyin avatar's body growing weaker, its massive form rapidly becoming transparent and fading. This was a clear sign that the spiritual power could no longer sustain the supreme avatar. A sense of weakness spread from Taiyin's body, his face turning ashen. Clearly, he hadn't expected Chen's spirit array attack to be so bizarre. Although the ink-black beam appeared to have no destructive force, its eerie ability to dissipate spiritual energy was truly lethal. Boom! The Taiyin avatar grew fainter and fainter, eventually unable to maintain its form. With a loud crash, it shattered into countless spots of dark, eerie light, much to the astonishment of those watching. As the supreme Dharmakaya shattered, Taiyin's body trembled violently, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. His spiritual energy fluctuations now reached their lowest point. In the sky, Chen coldly looked at the pale Taiyin. Then, with a change of hand seals, the 4 black lotuses began to rotate again, their lotus hearts locking onto the ladder, and the dark glow erupted once more. Seeing this, a look of horror suddenly appeared on Taiyin's face. He clearly hadn't expected that such a terrifying attack would still be within Chen's reach. With his supreme Dharmakaya destroyed, if his true body were struck now, it would suffer grave injuries. Immediately, he roared, "Chen, do you want to exterminate me?" Chen paid no attention. The dark glow rapidly condensed at the heart of the black lotuses. "Damn it, I surrender." Seeing the killing intent in Chen's eyes, Taiyin's heart sank, and panic set in. He hurriedly shouted in fear. At the sound of Taiyin's surrender, the crowd erupted into an uproar. Countless strong experts exchanged astonished glances, shaking their heads in disbelief. No one had expected Taiyin, who had been so confident of victory, to surrender voluntarily. Upon hearing Qiu Taiyin's words, Mu Chun smiled faintly. His black hair quickly returned to normal, and his dark eyes, as deep as black holes, returned to their usual state. As Mu Chun exited the lesser heart demon state, his expression became more animated. Then, I must thank Sect Master Qiu for his mercy, Mu Chun said with a pale smile, a hint of mockery in his tone. With his words, the 4 black lotuses disappeared into thin air, and Mu Chen's gaze dimmed. It was clear to everyone that he was completely exhausted. The fierce determination he'd shown earlier to exterminate Qiu Taiyin had been a facade. Countless strong experts were left speechless, but they couldn't help but wear strange smiles. They sympathetically glanced at Qiu Taiyin, who was now trembling with rage. This guy had been outwitted by Mu Chun. Looking at Qiu Taiyin's condition now, though his spiritual energy was depleted, he still clearly had the strength to fight. On the other hand, Mu Chun was completely drained. If they continued to fight, the exhausted Mu Chun would undoubtedly have to admit defeat. After all, Mu Chun had only recently advanced to the 4th grade supreme, and his spiritual energy was still unstable. Compared to prolonged combat, Qiu Taiyin had the clear advantage. But no one had expected that Mu Chun, having exhausted all his energy, would pull such a move to frighten Qiu Taiyin into surrendering. The crowd exchanged glances, shaking their heads in admiration. Mu Chun was truly too cunning. Low chuckles echoed through the square, while Qiu Taiyin, trembling with fury, stared at Mu Chun. The mocking laughter reached his ears, nearly driving him mad. He could already imagine how much damage this event would do to his reputation once word got out. "You little bastard, you're dead." Qiu Taiyin's eyes turned bloodshot, and his rage seemed to override his reason. With a roar, he clenched his fist, and a milky white jade slip appeared in his hand. The slip was engraved with incredibly intricate runes, and faintly, a violent spiritual energy fluctuation emanated from it. Whoosh! With a twisted face, Qiu Taiyin swung his arm, and the milky white jade slip shot out, exploding with a deafening boom. A wild surge of spiritual energy raged outward, forming into a roaring spirit lion, which charged directly toward Mu Chun. The spirit lion's body rippled with terrifying spiritual energy waves. Even the king's faces changed drastically. The mystic lion seal? The 3 sovereigns' eyes flashed with sharp light, and their faces turned cold. The mystic lion seal was an ultimate technique of the Xiantian Palace, and only its core members were allowed to possess it. The massive spirit lion appeared in front of Mu Chun, and under the crushing pressure of its spiritual energy, Mu Chun seemed as insignificant as an ant. The spirit lion then lunged forward, its jaws tearing at him. At this moment, with his energy drained and his spirit worn thin, Mu Chun could only watch helplessly as the enormous jaws of the spiritual lion, its fierce mouth rapidly growing larger in his vision. Bang! However, just as the massive jaws of the spiritual lion were about to close in on Mu Chun's body, the cries of shock from the heavens and earth abruptly vanished, and the entire space seemed to fall into a profound silence. Then, Mu Chun felt the oncoming lion freeze in midair. His tense heart finally relaxed as, before him, a petite figure slowly materialized. The space in front of Mu Chun rippled, like waves on water, and a small figure emerged. Upon seeing this figure, Mu Chun's body, which had been on edge, finally loosened. Mandala appeared in front of Mu Chun. Her small face was cold, her golden eyes gazing indifferently at the charging spiritual lion. With a simple wave of her hand, she lightly tapped the lion. Bang! With just a casual touch, the spiritual lion, which would have posed a serious challenge even to a 5th grade supreme, shattered like fragile glass. Mandala's expression remained unchanged as her hand grasped the fragments, gathering them into her palm. The violent spiritual energy became as docile as a lamb in her grasp. She toyed with the spiritual energy sphere for a moment, then raised her eyes to coldly look at the now pale-faced Qiu Taiyin, saying softly, "The Xiantian lion seal? How did this unique treasure of the Xiantian Palace end up in your hands?" The gasps of shock from the surrounding crowd vanished at once. Countless suspicious eyes turned toward Qiu Taiyin. Given the current enmity between the Great Luo Heaven Domain and the Xintian Palace, how could Taiyin possess such a rare item without raising suspicion? Taiyin trembled under Mandala's emotionless gaze, his face drained of color. He deeply regretted summoning the Xintian Lion Seal earlier, never imagining that Mu Chen's provocation would push him to the point where he lost all rationality. Domain Lord, that Xintian Lion Seal was obtained after I eliminated a powerful member of the Xintian Palace during a mission, Taiyin stammered, his voice shaky. Is that so? Mandala's golden eyes locked onto Taiyin, and as she met his gaze, he felt a chilling sensation crawl over him. In order to activate such a powerful seal, one must possess a unique method. Even within the Xintian Palace, only a few elders have access to it. So, according to your story, you killed one of their elders? Mandala's youthful voice carried an icy tone as she continued. Then, which elder did you eliminate? And why didn't you report such a significant achievement? If you truly killed an elder of the Xintian Palace, even if you lose today, I would still allow you to ascend to the throne. Taiyin's body quivered uncontrollably, cold sweat drenched his clothes. Under Mandala's penetrating gaze, he felt an overwhelming fear. The world around them fell silent. Countless eyes were fixed on Taiyin, and the oppressive pressure was so intense that his sanity began to crack. Boom. Unable to withstand the mounting pressure any longer, Taiyin let out a furious roar. His spiritual energy erupted in a violent surge, and in an instant, his figure transformed into a streak of light, shooting away toward the edge of the Great Luo Heaven Domain like a thunderclap. Mandala coldly watched as Taiyin fled. She flicked her hand lightly, and the space around them instantly froze. Taiyin's body became as immobile as an insect trapped in amber, unable to move. Mandala snapped her fingers, and Taiyin was sent crashing toward the king's ceiling platform, his body embedding into the earth. His spiritual energy was completely dispersed, and he could no longer move a single muscle. Take him away, Mandala said indifferently, her voice calm, yet full of authority. It seems the Xintian Palace has planted many spies in our Great Luo Heaven Domain. Perhaps he knows something. Immediately, the law enforcement team rushed forward, lifting the motionless Taiyin and swiftly carrying him away. The powerful figures surrounding the area stared at the retreating Taiyin and then looked up at Mandala, whose cold expression seemed to freeze the air. No one dared to make a sound, as they all felt the fury building inside her. Mandala, towering above them, cast a cold gaze over all the experts. Her voice echoed in each person's ears. The grand hunting war is approaching. You should all understand what that means. Even though the Great Luo Heaven Domain is the strongest force in the Northern Domain, we may still be devoured during the grand hunting war. Countless strong individuals felt a shiver in their hearts. In the Northern Domain, a place where competition was ruthless, without the protection of such a massive force, trying to cultivate alone would be far too dangerous. So, if you don't want to lose your protection and become prey hunted by others, show your loyalty. As long as you're loyal to the Great Luo Heaven Domain, I will naturally not treat you unfairly. Yes, Lord Domain Master. The countless strong individuals responded in unison, their voices filled with reverence. They knew that their standing in the Northern Domain, as well as their ability to cultivate using abundant resources, was largely due to the protection of Mandala, a superpower who had reached the Earth's supreme level. Mu Chen silently watched this scene, his heart stirred by the immense power of an Earth Supreme. Only such a powerful figure could stand tall and protect an entire region. Mandala's golden eyes shifted toward Mu Chen, and she said, "Now that the king's sealing ceremony has concluded, I hereby announce that, starting today, Mu Chen will be the 10th king of our Great Luo Heaven Domain." Countless envious gazes shot toward Mu Chen. To achieve such a status at his age, becoming a king of the Great Luo Heaven Domain, was indeed an extraordinary achievement. The other kings nodded in acknowledgement, though the Blood Eagle King stared at Mu Chen with wariness and a hint of regret. He had clearly never anticipated that Mu Chen's growth would be so rapid. Had he known this earlier, he would never have caused Mu Chen trouble. Provoking such a promising adversary now seemed like an extremely foolish thing to have done. Once you become the 10th king, You will have the right to establish your own faction, Mandala continued, looking at Chen. Generally, once someone became a king, they gained access to vast resources within the great Luo heaven domain, enough to build a force that could rival the other 9 kings. Of course, this would require time to develop. Numerous gazes focused on Chen, especially those from the 9 Nethers Palace. Each of them watched him eagerly, with anxiety and reluctance in their eyes. Once Chen established his own faction, he would no longer be part of the 9 Nethers Palace. He would no longer be under the leadership of the palace. No matter how closely his new faction resembled the 9 Nethers Palace, it would still create a subtle divide. Although Chen had been in the great Luo heaven domain for only a year, everyone at the 9 Nethers Palace knew that without his repeated life and death battles, the position of their palace would not have risen so swiftly. Chen is really impressive. To think he's about to become a king so quickly, Tang Rou said with a bright smile, her pure heart genuinely happy for Chen. On the side, Tang Bing rolled her eyes at her carefree younger sister, crossed her arms over her chest, and pouted slightly. She didn't even look at the now mighty Chen. She knew that losing Chen would be a significant blow to the 9 Nethers Palace, though she also understood that it wasn't Chen's fault. After all, the difference in status between a king and a leader was vast. Yet, the calmest of them all was 9 Nether, who not only showed no concern but even smiled at Chen. Her connection with him was so deep, a bond tied by blood, that she saw them as one. Therefore, she didn't mind if Chen formed his own faction. High above, Chen was momentarily stunned by Mandala's words. He then looked toward the 9 Nethers Palace, where countless eyes were fixed on him, full of eagerness. Smiling, he said, "There's no need for me to form a faction. I'll just stay in the 9 Nethers Palace. That shouldn't affect my access to the resources, right?" After spending a year in the 9 Nethers Palace, Chen was well aware of how troublesome it was to form a faction. If he focused his energy on that, it would inevitably interfere with his cultivation. Therefore, he clearly couldn't afford to sacrifice his future just for the sake of establishing a so-called faction. Moreover, the 9 Nethers Palace had all the power he needed. He could call upon any resources within the palace without any obstruction. Therefore, there was no need for him to leave. Chen thought this was a natural decision. However, what he didn't realize was that the moment his words spread, it left countless strong individuals dumbfounded. It was the first time they had ever seen someone give up on forming their own faction. The 9 Nethers Palace was equally stunned, but soon the stunned silence was broken by the sudden burst of cheers. All the members of the 9 Nethers Palace looked at Chen with eager and excited eyes. Clearly, they hadn't expected Chen to give up the chance to form his own faction and instead stay with them in the 9 Nethers Palace. Tang Bing was also stunned. Her beautiful eyes involuntarily turned to Chen, and she pouted, saying, "What a fool." However, even as she said that, the joy in her eyes couldn't be concealed. This guy still had some conscience. It wasn't in vain that she had gone through so much trouble to gather the supreme spiritual liquid for his cultivation. A smile appeared on 9 Nether's face. While she wasn't particularly surprised by this answer, the look in her eyes as she gazed at Chen had clearly become softer. In the sky, Mandala also looked at Chen in surprise for a moment before saying with a smile, "It's up to you. Even though you gave up building your own faction, all those resources will be added to the 9 Nethers Palace. And of course, you can use them freely." Chen nodded, then leaned in close to Mandala and whispered, "More than those things, what I care about most is the reward for this mission." Haha. At the end of his sentence, Chen grinned and rubbed his fingers toward Mandala. What he wanted the most right now were the 10 drops of divine beast essence blood needed for his cultivation of the dragon and phoenix scripture. Mandala looked at Chen, who was eyeing the reward with eager anticipation, and, helplessly, could only roll her eyes at him in annoyance.